What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a good, what are we at? Wednesday, Tuesday? Tuesday. Good to see y'all. Sorry I had to be out yesterday. Thanks to Rody for filling in. We are going to be talking to, I think I've got the wrong date on my thing here, so I'm going to put the right one up here. I've got yesterday's date. And it's definitely an interesting slate for a slate with 7 games. I feel like there's a lot of different ways to go. I did a video earlier. If you guys have watched it, great. It was sort of a quick rundown of each game. But some things have changed since then, and I just want to address the value first of all. I don't usually lock players in. I'm locking in McConnell. I don't care. It's just there's just no way I'm not doing it. He's my highest owned play, and he's not a value play, but he is a value play, but it's just he's 6K. The other ones, I like having the spot ready for Biyombo, mostly because I like to have a couple guys in the late game. I like Biyombo and I like Cam Johnson a lot. And I think I can always pivot things around if there's some news, let's say right before the Denver game that Jokic is out, we can switch over to Bruce Brown and Jamal Murray. I actually like Jamal Murray either way, but I just want to throw that out there. So Pritchard is probably not going to be in my main lineup, but he will be in a good portion of my other ones. It's just a lot of minutes. And it's a terrible matchup, but they need to have something happen. This game is on TNT. I am going to do something that I wasn't planning to do to start the day, and that is basically I'm not going to play Luka in my big one. I'm going to play a little tiny stack of a little Tatum, Derek White, Butler, Jimmy Butler on the other side in that Miami-Boston game. We know Butler gets up for big games. It's against Boston. This is an important game, obviously, always for Miami, and it's a nationally televised game on TNT. So I really like Jimmy Butler, especially at his low ownership at 7,600. That seems like a really good price. I considered Kyle Lowry also in that game, but I decided to just make it a 3-man stack with the White and Tatum. But I have no problem if instead of White you wanted to play Pritchard and save extra money. I just think that's just what I'm doing. On Indy side, other than McConnell, I think everybody's in play, but certainly no musts. My next favorite would be Neesmith, followed by Matherin, followed by Duarte. And I think all 4 of those, I'm not going to fault you for any of them, those 3 along with McConnell. I don't even mind Miles Turner if you wanted to get a game stack. I initially was big on DeMar DeRozan today. I am sort of coming off that so I can stack the Boston-Miami game, which is a really weird thing to say out loud on a big slate with a lot going on, stack Boston-Miami. But you can't deny when 4 guys who play a ton of minutes for Boston are out. I also think Sam Hauser's a reasonable value in that game. And I kind of, in a way, prefer getting to him in some ways to Pritchard, even though he's not in my main build right now. Other things that I'm doing on this slate that may be a little bit off the board. I think Donovan Mitchell going to New York is a thing. I just want to say, I really do. I don't think this is a nothing thing. I still don't think I'm going to end up getting to him because I like the guys around him. But I do think Donovan Mitchell playing in New York could be a thing. If he gets hot early on, you could see him go completely nuts. I know you've got Grimes and he's a good defender and all that, but I just think Donovan Mitchell is super talented. He's a New York guy, obviously. And we all thought he'd end up there. And I think this is a spot where he could go a little bit nutty. Then you have the Denver-New Orleans game. I think Bruce Brown and Jamal Murray are good plays as things stand right now without Jokic. If Jokic is out, I think you kind of have to play those 2 guys. I really do. I don't think you necessarily have to, but I think they're both tremendous plays, and I would expect 6x results out of both of them. I'm not really interested much on the New Orleans side as run back, but everything, everybody's fine. McCollum's fine. Valanciunas is fine. I'm just not going to do it probably. And again, if Jokic is out, maybe I will have to have a game stack there, but as of right now, that's what I'm doing there. I ended up lower on the Washington-Dallas game, which again, I'm kind of happy about, but kind of a little bit nervous because I do like Kuzma quite a bit. And it's interesting to play Jimmy Butler at a similar price to Kuzma tonight. I'm still going to do it. It's just the way it is. But I do like Kuzma and Avdia. Avdia, it will be in my main lineup most likely as of right now. On the Dallas side, I think that, if you wanted to, on other sites where we needed value, the Dorian Finney-Smith and Josh Green and Dwight Powell, sure. But I just don't think you need to go to those guys today. And I really do like Luka always. They've been doing this thing against them, if you haven't noticed. Well, they've played in some blowouts, first of all, so his numbers are a little skewed. But also, they've been doing this high trap all the time against him. And it's not even that it always seems to work. It's just it takes the ball out of his hands, and it's a little bit harder for him to get that 75 that I want. And I'm not saying that it's not going to be hard for Tatum at 11K. It's a $1,600 price difference, though. I like the game stack with Tatum. That was sort of my last decision that I've come to so far. Of course, if there's any other news, I will adjust. But as of right now, the way I'm looking at it is my spend ups are Tatum. I mean, they're not spending all the way up. Butler, as I mentioned, McConnell's not a spend up, but mid-range guy, 6,100. I really like the 7K price tag on Jamal Murray, who's been unbelievably good. And I like this matchup for him. So that's just sort of what I'm doing in my main build. But I do have other Luka lineups, and I do think Luka's a very strong play. I have like a couple Mark Williams flyers, but I'm not really going to play much of them in my big buy-ins. But I'm going to take a couple flyers on them and take some shots. And then Phoenix with the Biyombo, Cam Johnson, I think are both strong plays. I think Chris Paul's a really strong play as well. I just think I'm just not building that to get to him for some reason. I like Jamal Murray just as much. He's 500 cheaper, and you have some extra bonus possibility. If Jokic is out, you're just going to do it. But I am right now holding a spot for Cam Johnson and Biyombo in my main lineup. Just FYI. And then the Clippers and Lakers, I think the way to treat this game is stack it or avoid it. I know I never usually say that, and I think there's other routes. I think Paul George is a reasonably good play. LeBron, you could make an argument for him over Tatum. I am siding with Tatum personally tonight, but I have no problem if you want to side with LeBron. And I'm not really getting too much else on the Lakers. I think that Pat Beverly's in like one of my lineups that has like a little stack in it, but mostly other than that, I'm off the Lakers. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to jump into chat now and see what you guys said, and drop in questions and thoughts and all that. We have no sheets this week, so it's going to be us figuring it out together. As Rody says, hit the like button. And make sure you're subscribing if you don't already so you get alerted when we come live. What's up to Joe? What's up to K9? Joe says he had the nuts Jalen Green, Easton Sengun last night, but Brandon Clark killed him. Sorry to hear it. I actually didn't end up even playing yesterday. I had a family emergency thing I had to tend to, but it sounds like you had a lot of the right pieces. It's always rough. Yeah, I hear you, Joe. Gonna fade Luka and regret it. That's me. Butler has a new haircut. They got the new haircut narrative. I always like that one. I'm into it. Do you think Denver would be favored more if Jokic was in it? I think Denver is favored exactly what they would be if Jokic was in it. If I had to guess, that line looks like they think Jokic is going to play. That's Denver being favored at all out there without Porter. I think that's about right. So it's an interesting question, MJ. But I tried to go through the line. I thought about how it would work other ways, and I just think that Vegas, as of right now, is pretending that Jokic is legitimately questionable. But now, if Jokic, if we get the word that he's in, do you think that line's going to jump? Probably not. Maybe it jumps half a point or a point. But I think personally, I'm treating the line as if these are two real. New Orleans is a good team. This is not like a nothing team that they're playing, and it is New Orleans, so giving them a little edge there. Any Dinwiddie love with Woodard? So I do like Dinwiddie, and he had a big game against these guys before. His old team, he was back there then. So I do think Dinwiddie is definitely like in play, but I just didn't get to him. I just prefer the other guys I'm playing a little bit better than I do him. No real other way to describe it. But both Dinwiddie and Luka definitely obviously get a bump, as well as Tim Hardaway Jr. with no Christian Wood, not to mention Dwight Powell. So if you wanted to go ahead and stack that game and to answer the next question about Kuzma, I really like Kuzma. I am siding with Jimmy Butler due to ownership and because I believe in the narratives and all that stuff. Kuzma, if you look at his game log, it's very hard not to want to play him. He's put up 52 or more in 3 of the last 4. You have no Porzingis, obviously. That's a bump for him. One guy who no one's playing is Daniel Gafford. I'm probably not going to play him either, but it's kind of funny that we're like, getting to the Bismack thing. I do like Bismack, and obviously centers against Charlotte are the nuts. But it could just as easily be Lawndale as it could Bismack, and you could end up seeing Sarge at the 5. I'm kind of curious to see how Phoenix shakes their starting lineup out tonight. But I do think that's kind of funny that we're playing Bismack at such, he's going to have high ownership, and yet no one's going to play Gafford, who's only 700 more. And we know Gafford at least is their starting center, and there's no Porzingis, which gives him a little more security. And he's against a team that you can beat up on the boards. The problem is you can also go small against them, and they can use Taj Gibson in an annoying way to frustrate us. But I just think it's kind of funny when you think about it that way, that maybe there's some argument that if I was max entering tonight, I would probably have like a good percentage of Gafford as a flyer, because I think a double-double is very, very possible in this matchup. Sims getting 30 minutes tonight. I can't promise that Sims is going to get 30 minutes tonight. We know with the Knicks, all of the other starters are going to get minutes, right? Sims did play 33 in the last game. Before that, played 28 and 20. I think Jericho Sims is fine. He can be incredibly aggravating. You might see him play like 10 minutes without scoring a fantasy point. That does happen with him, more than you think. Randall controls most of the boards. So I am not on Sims, but I don't mind it. It's just not for me personally. I do think Randall's an interesting play. I didn't end up getting to him, but I think at 10K is completely reasonable. Another guy who's just been putting up monster games every night. Only had a couple of, and they're not even duds. Like his duds are like 42s. You know what I mean? He's a pretty solid guy, and it's a tough matchup though. So I don't know that this is the time I'll be utilizing a guy like Julius Randle. Just going through things as I go. I hit the like button, but no sound on. There's no sound. That's interesting. You guys can hear me, right? It seems like everybody can hear me because you're responding to stuff I'm saying, right? So if you can't hear me for any reason, I'm not sure why that would be that way, Wesley. I know it sounds crazy, but try turning up the volume on your computer. It's happened to me many times while recording, and I do this for a living. So certainly no shame in if you don't have your volume up. So you guys can hear me. Yeah, Bradley Beal is pretty cheap, but think about it. I like the idea of playing some Bradley Beal, but if you're playing that game, if you're playing the other side of it, shouldn't you be playing Kuzma? Like Bradley Beal, he's coming back from the injury, has only played 27 and 28 minutes the last two games. Do you feel better about Bradley Beal than you do about Kuzma? Because I feel a little better about Kuzma, but I definitely don't mind Bradley Beal. He's at a shooting guard spot that's not that strong. Yeah, I see. If I'm pronouncing that right, IO 22, and I like the 22 in there. It's my lucky number. I'm liking that Boston-Miami game as well, and that's what I'm doing. But I am not playing much Pritchard in my big buy-ins. I am going to fade Pritchard at crazy high ownership. Even if Pritchard gets 25, I don't think on this kind of slate that means you need him. Now, I am playing Biyombo, so maybe I'm sort of speaking out of both sides of my mouth. But I think that matchup with Charlotte is a little too enticing. And the thing about Pritchard is he could literally play 35 minutes and end up with 14 fantasy points. They're not going to run any offense through him. The only thing he'll be doing is shooting catch and shoot threes. I actually think that, like, if you want to make a bet, like, if someone give you like 3-1, bet Sam Hauser has more fantasy points than Peyton Pritchard tonight. I like Derek White for what it's worth. I think he's being underprojected throughout the industry. So I'm going a little bit of a different route with that one. And I basically picked, I have some cheap players in my lineups like Biyombo. So I basically picked Biyombo and Avdia ahead of Pritchard. That's where I'm at. But I have I'm not going to fault you for playing a guy who's 3,700, starting at point guard, playing 30 plus minutes for a competitive team. I'm just going to say, like, I don't necessarily like to think it's some sort of automatic lock. If you're playing cash, it's a lock. It's not an automatic tournament lock at all. What else is there to address? We went through everything pretty quickly, so keep popping in some questions and some thoughts. Seems like mostly a lot of us are on the same page because all the guys that are mentioned, I definitely considered strongly tonight. I just have gone a little bit of a different route. Jericho Sims versus a guy like Pritchard is an interesting thing. One thing about Sims tonight that makes it like him even a little bit more interesting is that the size that they have. So it does make you think he might play more minutes because you kind of have to match up two bigs. The only problem with that logic is that Obi Toppin could steal some of those minutes and technically be a pseudo other big. And Isaiah Hartenstein will play his 14 to 18 minutes like he always does. But Obi Toppin could throw a little chink in that and play 16 or 18 minutes or something like that and be just enough to be frustrating to if you roster Sims. I'm not suggesting to play Toppin. I'm just saying that's what went through my process of why I didn't want to do it. Yeah, I hear you. I'm not as high on Dame, but I definitely don't mind him. I'm a little high. I am high on Butler. Pacers other than McConnell, I went through them, but I'll go through them again because I think it's something you kind of have to get right tonight. McConnell's the only one in my main lineup. They're projected to play, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they're projected to play 11 guys tonight. Just keep that in mind. They don't tend to let, Mathurin play like 50 minutes. He's going to play probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess 30 to 32. Neesmith will play 28-ish. Duarte will play somewhere between 24 and 30. McConnell should be pretty locked in for his minutes. But I have him ranked McConnell 1, Matherin 2. This is for tournaments. Neesmith 3, Duarte 4. And then I think Miles Turner and Buddy Hield are good large field plays. Buddy Hield is probably getting a little too I probably overlooked him a little bit more than I should have. But I think he's being a little over projected, and especially his ownership, his projection is, I think I got him at 25%. I don't see that as being realistic. He's also very volatile, very shooting reliant. And even in these spots we've seen this year, we haven't always seen him be productive. In fact, when they sat everybody that one game against OKC, he didn't even play minutes. He played 19 minutes. Favorite game stack tonight? Good question, K9. I like the Boston and Miami game, mostly because you're getting the value from Boston. And I don't think you even need to go more than 4 in a stack. Just Butler and Bam is a big allocation for salary. You throw in either Pritchard or Derek White, maybe Sam Hauser, maybe Kyle Lowry or Bam. I think all of those are reasonable things to do. I'm just mostly sticking to the 3-man game stack, but it is allocating a lot of my salary to that particular game. My next favorites would be the Indy Chicago. And then depending on what happens with Jokic, it might turn into Denver, New Orleans. And I don't mind the Lakers and Clippers at all. If you wanted to go that route, it's just not what I'm doing. All right, getting through all the questions. Got 36 people watching. Hey guys, hit the like button. Keep all that stuff. We're doing all this stuff for free. This part of the thing for free. So I wanted to show you guys that. I also want to talk real quickly. I do think you guys should go to m.bettertakes.com. Or just go to Better Takes on your phone in the App Store and check it out. It's an awesome bet tracking app that we basically very shortly will be able to download your entire history from any if you bet from any site consistently. As long as we get the file, you can just download your stuff and it'll have your immediate history, all your biases, every division that you're successful in, everything like that. It's broken me down. I've broken it down with really well with it. I'm up to, I think over the last 2 years, like almost 26%. No, is that right? Sorry, that's before the VIG. So because of some of the sites I bet on, close to like 18 to 20% ROI in NBA, which is just an absurd number. I can't say that I can duplicate it all the time, but it's done really well by helping me steer towards the games that I wanted to steer towards. And what I learned about myself is that I'm very, very, very good with the over-unders, especially I'm very, very good with the West Coast teams. Anybody in the Western Division, I'm good in the East ones. It's like the ROI like quadruples when I go to the Western Conference. Any CP3, I think he's fine, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm not playing him personally, no. He's totally, I think, a good play. I just didn't get to him. If you want to play him, I support it 100%. Just one of those slates where there's a ton of good plays, and I didn't end up getting him into my builds. J-Val, if Jokic is out, no. I don't think that's a boost in any way to Joe-Val, personally. I think you could argue better that if the Joker's in, I think that you could argue that that's a better spot for Joe-Val. I mean, if we go through this all the time with Valanciunas, and I just want to say, like on big slates where there's a lot of other things standing out, he will get overlooked and he will have some big games. But the guy still has played 30 minutes twice in 2 months. He's played 30 minutes exactly 2 times. I just can't roster the best guys like that on these kind of slates where there's so much juicy stuff going on. Now, could I maybe play him? Is he maybe a better play because the game stack becomes better and I want to play 3 guys from Denver? Sure, that would be the way I would get to Joe-Val, but not because Jokic is out. No, that's not. I actually think that the argument is that he would play more if Jokic played personally, potentially. Do I like Robert Williams? No. Is Ayton out? Yes. Jimmy Butler is out? Are you kidding me? Is that right? Oh my God. Well, back to the drawing board. Let's see what that's going to do for us if that's in fact the case. Wow. Is that the case? Can we confirm it, guys? I don't have Jimmy Butler out. I'm going to do a quick Twitter search here because that is going to change my build, obviously. Let's see what I've got. Jimmy Butler has been ruled out. Wow. His back must actually be hurting. Okay. So the first thing I want people to do is not overreact to that information and play everybody else from Miami. They still, remember, we've seen Miami all year long not have Jimmy Butler at times, not have Bam at times. We've seen them not have Butler, Bam, or Hero a number of times. We've seen this stuff, and it doesn't mean we have to play these other guys. They are definitely more in play. I'm going to let the projections rerun and see what they say, but it's going to take a little while for that to happen. And I don't think that anybody becomes a must play. What I would say is that Kyle Lowry at 4,800 is probably, I think it's a much better play than it was a little while ago when we started to feel, like we were priced into playing him. It's been a while, but without Butler, I do think Lowry, at 4,800 in the competitive game should play like 40 minutes and should have a lot of the offense running through him. So I think that he's my initial one. The obvious, the one that most people are going to go to, which are both totally fine plays, are Hero and Bam. And I think all three, Lowry, Hero, and Bam are all very interesting. I think even Struss at 4K is worth taking a shot on just because of his ability to hit threes, and he's a pivot off of the chalky Avdia. But remember, they're still pretty healthy. It's not like they don't have bodies to go around. Oladipo's playing minutes now. I think Oladipo's in play, but I would prefer, I guess Oladipo's as good, basically similar to Lowry. Oladipo, Lowry, Hero, and Bam are going to be the main guys, and my favorite's probably going to be siding with the cheaper ones. But I certainly am not going to argue against getting Bam or Hero in there. I have a feeling Bam is going to project really, really, really well. And while we know Robert Williams is a really good defensive player and everything, it's more of a help side defender, so it doesn't worry me as much. But that is going to change the builds. Thanks for that, Kobe, by the way, for getting it to us right away, because it gives us a little bit more time here to figure out what we want to do. But I think that's going to be the thing. I don't think you need to overreact and play all these guys. I think that all of them are interesting, good plays in their own right. But I don't think that you need to play them. It is kind of interesting that we have a TNT game where basically everybody's sitting. We don't get that very often, especially between these two teams. As of right now, we're assuming that Jokic is playing. He might, if he's out, you're going to have to adjust. I can't help you with that. That's not really. Yeah, I mean, it's fine for Tatum. Those things are a little bit overrated. It wasn't like they were going to probably have Butler guard him the whole game anyway. You're right. It's a bump for him, but it's not as big of it's not like a postseason game or something. Like, it's still a competitive TNT game. So yeah, it's a bump, but it's not like something crazy. Like maybe some people will think it is. I just don't want to overreact to it. It is interesting because, like, who do you have guard him? And honestly, the guy who could do the best job on him would probably be Bam. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see Bam guarding Tatum quite a bit tonight. Tatum ownership might go up. That's true. But also there's more value in it, and people are going to probably play the Miami side more now than they were. So that's going to make him go up too. So yeah. No, you could stack the Clippers and Lakers game. I said it makes sense as a stack, but it's just not what I'm doing. So Butler, let's see what else we've got with this. Of course, my super awesome play is the guy who gets announced out. Was not ready for that one. I didn't even have him as questionable. All right, what do we have here? Boy, this McConnell, that can't be right. Did somebody else get announced out for Indiana? Why has McConnell's projection just jumped like 10 points or 8 points on my thing? That seems a little too high. I am curious how these Miami guys are going to project though, and see if they get the bump that they could. I'm a little tempted by this Lowry thing, by the way. Just something about it. I find it a little tempting. I'm afraid. I'm curious where. They definitely haven't updated yet. I'm afraid that people will actually play him because his projection might look better. But if they don't play him, that was going to be my sneaky one to go to. Najee Marshall is out. That means nothing for me. The only way it means anything is if Jokic is out, because that means I'm going to stack that game. I guess what it does mean, if there was one thing, because I had Najee Marshall expected to be out anyway. I think Larry Nance is a tournament flyer you could take a shot on. Sort of like Larry Nance, Struss. Those are interesting pivots off of Avdia, who should have some pretty good ownership, although I do like Avdia better than those guys. But Larry Nance certainly could get some run here. And I do think Najee Marshall being out helps him a little bit more. Even he put up 36 in the last game. So Larry Nance is probably your answer as who it helps the most. I mean, you can say Herb Jones is fine. That game, everybody's so just like fine, middle of the road, that maybe if we get any Jokic news, maybe we stack that game up with the obvious plays will be the Brown Murray, but maybe getting Gordon in there as well, if no Jokic, and then running it back with either McCollum or Joe Val, probably McCollum. and then play one of Nance, Herbert Jones, or Trey Murphy. I would prefer it in that order: Nance, Herbert Jones, then Trey Murphy, because that game would just seem like a fun one to stack. It's going to be a great blistering pace anyway, so you're going to have opportunities if you get the right pieces of it. Nembhard out. We knew that a while ago, so that doesn't change anything. Nembhard was announced out, I believe, like an hour and a half ago. So that's nothing new for me. It is weird though, with what McConnell's projection jumped from 38 on my thing to 45. Huh. I still love McConnell, so it doesn't matter anyway. I play him at 30. I played him at a 35 point projection today. I just think that he's a really, really good play. All right, guys, any other questions before I get out of here? I'm still just waiting on the Miami stuff to update. As I expect, it will drive people to Hero and Bam. And I think some people will take some shots with the cheap Kyle Lowry. I also think Struss is going to jump. Yeah, here it is. Struss has jumped up. Lowry jumped up. Oladipo jumped up. Actually, Hero and Bam jumped up a little less than the other guys did, but still look like pretty good plays. I can't tell you who the highest owned centers are right now because it's going to be different based on the ownership hasn't updated yet. They haven't even got the projections done for Miami yet, so that's going to be impossible. Ayton, when someone's doubtful, you just assume they're out. That's what you do. Every system out there has Ayton as out. Now, if he ends up deciding to play, yeah, you're kind of in trouble if your only guy late is Biyombo. So I'm fine if you want to skip Biyombo. You don't need that value anymore. But I do think that I'm probably going to play him because I'm willing to embrace a little bit of that risk. I don't really mind that much. But yeah, I have Ayton as out right now. And based on the fact that the Phoenix is only a 6.5 point favorite in Charlotte, Vegas obviously thinks he's out as well. I don't know about Oladipo season. I'm not co-signing that one. I think he's okay. There's a lot of ways that game could go. And they still have guys who can score, Hero, Bam, Lowry, and Oladipo's fine. I just don't think it's like an automatic play. I think that you're deciding, I think Oladipo, Lowry is a really close decision. And I think that Bam and Hero are obviously at different price points, but I think are really, really valuable now. It's really hard to analyze the center's ownership though. So these are going to be false. The highest owned center, like LeBron James's ownership keeps jumping, but that's because the value keeps opening up. So that's natural. But you've got, funny thing is Gafford went from, I had him earlier in the day. He was like 2%. Now he's at 13%. And that was after Porzingis was out. So that's kind of a little weird. Miles Turner, people aren't playing Jokic that much. They're kind of scared about like playing him. And I'm starting to think to myself, I might just go ahead and play Jokic and save myself a little bit of the worry, assuming that he plays. So that's all I can do with the information right now. But as I was mentioning with Bam, and by the way, I don't want to give away all the ownership things on here. If you're a member of our site, you can go see the ownerships. You can jump right over there. So I'm not here to try to give away information that we're charging people for. I'll give rough numbers and things like that, but I'm not gonna. And I'll talk about some specific plays. I just don't want to like recite who's being projected to be owned the most to people who can check out. Yeah, Duarte's fine. I think that there's high variance with that play, but there's high variance with most of these plays. The different, like Duarte has like obviously a much wider range of outcomes than Peyton Pritchard, but at least can do things where if he has a really good game, he might get like 40, where it would take a lot for Peyton Pritchard to get to like 40 or something like that. I just think it would take a kind of a miracle, to be honest. So that's where I'm at. I got to go finish my builds, guys. So I have to get out of here. I do appreciate all you guys tuning in. I will be in Discord if you want to ask some questions in there and tag me. Just try to do it as soon as possible or as much before. So if you ask me 5 minutes before lock, it's going to be very, very hard unless it's about later games. In that case, I'll try to get to it after. I'm really bummed about the Butler news, just like my man IO22 over here. So good luck to everybody. Let's kill it tonight. Let's make some money, and I'll be in Discord all night answering any questions. So good luck.